the victims feel this because, you know, they've been systematically let down by the system for 20 years. You do have to think, what are inquiries for? They're supposed to have the kind of definitive answer to what happened and lessons that we can learn. Part of what inquiries are for, though, politically, is to kick the can down the road. That's when politicians call for these inquiries. It's a way of saying, we'll talk about that later. Lessons that we can learn. Part of what...
Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Well, hello there. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Joining us this evening, as you can see, we have the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman. Lovely to see both of you and welcome. So as ever, let us check out the front pages, starting with the Daily Express. It leads with the first findings of the inquiry into the Post Office Horizon computer scandal and news that up to 13 people took their own life because of wrongful prosecutions. The Daily Mail quotes campaigners who say the report proves that the Post Office now has blood on its hands. As well as the 13 deaths, the Metro points out that another 59 victims of the scandal contemplated taking their own lives. The reported sacking of MasterChef presenter Greg Wallace over alleged misbehaviour, which he denies, leads The Sun, with a quote from him, "It's war." It may have been all smiles today with the King, but the Telegraph says France's President Macron will blame Keir Starmer for the small boats crisis when they meet to discuss the issue during his state visit. The Financial Times has a warning from the Office for Budget Responsibility of a daunting threat to public finances as the country's debt burden increases. While the Eye says the head of the OBR thinks the end may be in sight for keeping the pensions triple lock that recent governments have pledged to retain. The Guardian claims an exclusive over efforts to limit trials by jury to stop the justice system from collapsing. And The Times goes with the government's refusal to give resident doctors any more money, despite their vote today to strike for more pay. So let us take a look in closer detail with Ali and Jenny. Welcome to both of you. First of all, then, a number of newspapers leading on the Post Office inquiry today and the devastation to so many lives.
Yes, I mean, this was the first report from the Judge Sir Win Williams, who's been looking into the Post Office scandal, and it looked at the scale of suffering of those sub-postmasters and postmistresses. And some of the details and numbers coming out of this are really shocking. I mean, we are always cautious about drawing causal links when we're talking about suicide, but 13 people are believed to have taken their own lives after they'd been accused or prosecuted for fraud, which they did not commit because of the faulty Horizon software. But there was also many other people, 59 more, contemplated ending their life. There are stories of alcoholism, of family breakdown, of bankruptcy, people losing their homes, losing their businesses, people who became pariahs in the communities that they were once at the heart of. That's the kind of job that they had. And it does sort of beg the question, you know, how do you compensate for this? There is a scheme, but today also we heard that the scheme was inadequate in that it was too slow, in that people had not been given legal aid. And some victims today responding to this were sceptical of the fact that these findings, even though they're incredibly strong, and they're not actually apportioning blame, although Sir Win was saying some things that suggest that I think he is going to be highly critical of the Post Office, saying that they knew or should have known that the software was faulty. But there is a cynicism of whether or not meaningful change can ever happen as a result of any inquiry. And, of course, the victims feel this because, you know, they've been systematically let down by the system for 20 years. You do have to think, what are inquiries for? They're supposed to have the kind of definitive answer to what happened and lessons that we can learn. Part of what inquiries are for, though, politically, is to kick the can down the road. That's when politicians call for these inquiries. It's a way of saying, we'll talk about that later. But what must come out of this inquiry is that the process is sped up, the process of getting justice and compensation for the victims and for some of the victims' families who are now going to be eligible according to the recommendations made and accepted in this part of the report.
And we know that people have died before they had a resolution to this. But when you see front pages like the Daily Mail, it feels like the compensation bill will just get more expensive.
Well, the compensation bill is what it is, but the thing is, it's taking too long. And it's not only compensation, it's also accountability. I mean, heads should really roll for this. And I think the public expects it. I mean, this is the most egregious scandal, or one of the most egregious scandals in British public history. I mean, this is absolutely appalling. Thousands of people wrongly accused of misappropriating funds, having sleepless nights, marriages breaking down, now suicides being linked to this, people taking their own lives, completely destroying people's lives, and also, as Jenny says, reputations in the community. I mean, it's absolutely appalling that so many thousands of people have gone through this. And people who actually were thinking at the time, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And we're being told, no, this software is correct. You're wrong. And only people like Alan Bates having the courage to actually challenge that and saying, no, But not everyone has that courage.
And one woman, we learned today, called more than 230 times to complain about the software and still ended up being prosecuted.
It's absolutely...
Having told them there was something wrong with it.
But someone's head has to roll for this. And that's the thing. It's not just the compensation, which is taking far too long and has not been meted out yet, but it's also about accountability. And what faith can people have in the system?
Yeah. I'm going to move on, if you don't mind, because there's lots to pack in this evening, not least the state visit of Emmanuel Macron, the first since Brexit of a European leader, speaking very strongly in Parliament today, and a glittering state banquet tonight, although we see the arrival shots here in the front page of the Financial Times. But strong messages, really, about, you know, the global world order and the rules-based order and the importance of this sort of union of Britain and France in maintaining that sort of fulcrum, if you like, of how life used to be before, before things have changed so much.
Before the days when Liz Truss doubted whether or not he was a friend or a foe. It was really not that long ago. This was a kind of message of fraternity. And it was this idea that, you know, he was making lots of... he was making a very strong point about, you know, we need to be strong against China, but also the US. And there is this sense that there has been this defence pact between the UK and Australia and the US, which France has been left out of. And when it comes to the kind of global order, what Macron is trying to say is the UK needs to be closer to the EU, even if we're not part of the European Union. He had quite some strong things to say about Palestine and wanting Palestine to be recognised as a state, which, of course, we know that...
Look at that. I mean, this is why Donald Trump wants to come. Have you seen
I was invited, but I said I had to go to press preview.
How do you get an invite to this gaff?
It all looks pretty grand. And he does look like he's enjoying it very much. But no, he's trying to pin Keir Starmer down.
We almost feel like we're with them. Look, we're almost in the picture. But anyway...
It's as close as we're going to get.
He's absolutely stunning.
In a way, you could see it as he is trying to kind of put a wedge or create some distance between the UK and the US by urging Keir Starmer to take a stand and recognise Palestine as a state, which, of course, the US is not.
And yet there are wedge issues, despite promising to have compromise on and cooperation with. Daily Telegraph says Macron is to blame the Prime Minister for the small boats crisis. Certainly, we've already heard that the pull factors, you know, which makes people come to the UK, one of which, to be fair, is English, which is not our fault, need to be tackled.
Well, I think he's long said this. It's not a new thing.
No.
But he's saying you're making it too attractive. The black economy is thriving. People are going underground. They disappear. I mean, the bizarre thing is, when you actually say to people, there's no control of the border, and people can just disappear into the ether, including people, by the way.
It's the identity cards, though, isn't it? The French have identity cards.
They do.
And the suggestion is that we need them here.
People could come into the country and apply for asylum and then just disappear during the process. And there are 17,000 people, apparently, that have done exactly that. No idea where they are. They might be being exploited as modern-day slaves. We have no idea. So Macron's quite right to talk about this. He's also talking about this one-in, one-out policy, that if people who are trying to leave France because they've got family reunion in the UK, you should allow that, one, and then they'll take back people who are not allowed in the UK back to France. So
which might be a hard sell to the rest of Europe. But the whole point is this is the big discussion point tomorrow when the policy and everything is made, the pomp and the beauty, you know, tonight, as we saw from those pictures as well. In the meantime, let's go to the economy. And this is the Office for Budget Responsibility, who have painted a not-so-pretty picture of it.
Yes, they have. The chair of the OBR said today the UK cannot afford the promises it has made to the public, specifically looking at things like the triple lock, which is going to cost £15 billion a year by 2030. Also, the cost of the state pension is going to be the equivalent of 8% of the economy, up from 5% right now. We are living in an age of low growth, high cost of borrowing. All these promises that, I mean, we keep saying, these cliches about the black hole and about Rachel Reeves boxing herself in, but she did do it. She made all these promises not to raise taxes.
None of this is a surprise when you have an ageing population. No wonder you need to get working age people to work, because they need to support our
This is not a pandemic. This is not a random invasion.
The care sector,
you know,
pensions,
all of these problems were already there.
The National Health Service. It's all
lack of political courage, and it's about what happens when politics hits realities. Everyone wants to be able to make promises that they can't keep.
Yes, and the eye picks up on specifically the triple lock point. But your overall assessment of where they think we're at and what that means for, you know, the budget in the autumn?
Dire. I mean, look, you've got 2.7 trillion of public debt. You've had 300 billion of borrowing on the back of COVID. You've got a situation where we are effectively broke. And the Prime Minister and the Chancellor during the election made promises around VAT, national insurance and income tax, which they now are going to have to look at again, as Paul Johnson of the IFS says, because things are dire. And she's only left herself with 9 billion of fiscal headroom, which is very, very thin. I mean, you're talking about multi-billion budgets here. 9 billion is nothing. So she is going to have to look at tax rises. And also, Labour backbenchers are now smelling blood. I mean, they've had this reversal on the winter fuel. They've now also seen down this thing on welfare reform. Now, what will be next? I mean, there's not going to be any reform to the triple lock. I mean, there'll be an outcry. So it's a dire situation. Growth is absolutely anemic at 0.8%. Things are really, really difficult. They're trying to do what they can on the supply side, on the planning reforms. That takes time. It takes ages to get productivity up in this country. It hasn't been up for 15 years. So it's not looking good. Taxes are going to have to go up. OK. Checking your list to see if it gets cheerier. I think there is a happy ending somewhere in your list, but it comes after the break. In the meantime, next up, we will talk about Greg Wallace insisting he won't go quietly in the face of reports that he's been sacked by the BBC. That and more after the break.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, Ali Miraj and Jenny Kleeman. Let's go to Greg Wallace, front page of The Sun and elsewhere. Still awaiting the report into the allegations against him, but he's come out certainly defending himself, has he not, Ali?
Well, he has defended himself, certainly. He's saying that at times he'd use inappropriate language, but was the victim of incredible injustice. Look, last time when this first came out, he said that these allegations, I think, had been made by middle-class women of a certain age. Look, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there's been a report done. A lot of allegations have been made by 50 people, some of them very, very serious allegations. And if you read some of the detail in it, which is pretty unpleasant, quite frankly.
Well, we haven't had the actual report, is the point, isn't it, I suppose? But, yeah.
But from what we're understanding is contained within it, it's unpleasant. Obviously, Greg Wallace has a right to reply, and it all needs to be looked at very, very carefully. But he has now, as I understand it, been sacked.
I mean, he says he was employed to be a cheeky greengrocer, and now his personality acts against him, describing some of the allegations, which you're not about to tell me, no doubt,
I think
as uncorroborated tittle-tattle.
I think some of this is an insult to greengrocers, if that's what he says. He's just got greengrocers. I mean, one of the allegations, which the BBC was reporting today, it's on the front of the Telegraph and in a lot of the papers.
No doubt. I think as uncorroborated tittle-tattle.
I think some of this is an insult to greengrocers, if that's what he says. He's just got greengrocers. I mean, one of the allegations, which the BBC was reporting today, it's on the front of the Telegraph and in a lot of the papers, is there was a woman who was working on a programme with Greg Wallace who says that she was in his dressing room, he pushed her onto a sofa, he took his trousers down, and when she... Allegedly. And when she went to complain to members of the production staff, she was told, "You're over 16, it's not like you've been ginny-saddled," which suggests that this isn't just a problem with him, it is a problem with a culture, and this is again something that we've seen within the BBC, and in particular a culture around stars, that they are allowed to get away with behaviour that nobody else would be allowed to get away with in the workplace. We do need to see what the report says, and it's clearly going to be messy for the BBC, given his rhetoric on the front of The Sun.
Yeah, I mean, he accepted he had at times used inappropriate language, but was the victim of an incredible justice, denying...
And this is again something dressing room.
But he is now, some of them very, very serious allegations. And if you read some of the detail in it, which is pretty unpleasant, quite frankly.
We haven't had the actual report, is the point, isn't it, I suppose? But, yeah.
But from what we're understanding is contained within it, it's unpleasant. Obviously, Greg Wallace has a right to reply, and it all needs to be looked at very, very carefully. But he has now, as I understand it, been sacked.
I mean, he says he was employed to be a cheeky greengrocer, and now his personality acts against him, describing some of the allegations, which you're not about to tell me, no doubt, as uncorroborated tittle-tattle.
I think some of this is an insult to greengrocers, if that's what he says. He's just got greengrocers. I mean, one of the allegations, which the BBC was reporting today, it's on the front of the Telegraph and in a lot of the papers, is there was a woman who was working on a programme with Greg Wallace who says that she was in his dressing room, he pushed her onto a sofa, he took his trousers down, and when she... Allegedly. And when she went to complain to members of the production staff, she was told, "You're over 16, it's not like you've been ginny-saddled," which suggests that this isn't just a problem with him, it is a problem with a culture, and this is again something that we've seen within the BBC, and in particular a culture around stars, that they are allowed to get away with behaviour that nobody else would be allowed to get away with in the workplace. We do need to see what the report says, and it's clearly going to be messy for the BBC, given his rhetoric on the front of The Sun.
Yeah, I mean, he accepted he had at times used inappropriate language, but was the victim of an incredible justice, denying, as you said, many of the allegations against him. So we will await that report. In the meantime, what we learned from Monsieur Macron today, President Macron, the Bayer tapestry is on its way to England. One says returning to England because it is thought it was actually... sewn, thank you very much, sewn in this country. But they didn't know where it had been anywhere between 1476, I heard today.
Yes, but
it's about 900 years, more than 900
And also,
years
apparently, there are some quite rude jokes embroidered into the bio tapestry. Maybe some people with that kind of sense of humour might find that funny. But this is a great thing. It's going to be at the British Museum. I've seen it on a school trip. It's really, really educational, really fantastic way of bringing history to life. It's great.
I've seen it in situ too, but you'll be able to see it.
I haven't seen it. I'm a member of the British Museum, so I'm looking very, very much forward to going and seeing this. So it's good. Look, Macron is a serious politician. He's made a serious speech today. He's talked about many, many things, including, as you were mentioning, this over-dependency to the US and also China. But he's also understands the cultural elements of this too. So I think he wants to actually have a close relationship with the UK because we need each other now. It's not a question anymore of whether the US should be the UK's special and closest relationship. It really is whether France should be.
Yeah, September 2026, I think, is when that will arrive. They did suggest they had hundreds of elements of repair in order to allow it to transport, so let's hope it will. Ali, Jenny, thank you both very much indeed. See you for more in 11. Here's the weather now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Returning high pressure will make it mostly very warm and dry this week, with heatwave conditions developing quite widely this weekend. So expect a rather grey start tomorrow, especially northern and central parts. Fog and drizzle on some coasts and hills. Sunny spells, though, will develop through the morning. But Western Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland keeping a lot of cloud. Patchy light rain will affect the blustery northwest. Elsewhere, mainly dry, by the odd shower over England and Wales, oh, that's everywhere, nearly. Top temperatures will be widely above average. The afternoon will bring in the more in the way of sunshine. Northwest Scotland will stay dull and damp into the evening. Thursday looks mostly dry and sunny. The far northwest will be cloudy again, a little rain in places, turning out very warm, locally hot in the south. 30 degrees Celsius, that's 86 Fahrenheit possible, and staying mostly settled on Friday and over the weekend.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
So coming up in Sky News at 11, Benjamin Netanyahu is at the White House for a hastily arranged summit with President Trump over a proposed Gaza ceasefire. Sky News understands only one issue between Israel and Hamas remains unresolved. We will have the latest on that.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent.